We've seen some reports of children being treated with suspected food poisoning around the country in recent weeks, and some reports put the figure at around 300. So some experts are now calling for toxicology reports to reveal exactly what is behind some of the cases that we've seen. Let's speak to Professor Alex van den Heever from the Wits Social Security Systems and Administration and Management Studies, who's joining us live now on the matter. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. The fact that we are seeing such a surge in cases is quite unusual, and it certainly raises some serious questions.
Yeah, it's very unusual, particularly the numbers concerned, and the fact that they're quite localized in particular areas, but then in completely different parts of the country. And so the question is, what's the relationship between them? And then a further concern is that there doesn't appear to be a rush to understand exactly what has happened here, what was poisoning those children. And then there is a very quick rush to judgment that these foreign-owned spaza shops are somehow the cause. And there is a quick move at a very senior political level to say that despite the fact there is no evidence. So I think this is concerning because we do need to know what caused this. We need to have the pathology evidence introduced and shown and made public to really understand whether or not there is a danger to children in South Africa.
And I'm going to get to the point of, the move to apportion the blame without some facts and the dangers that it poses. But let's stay with how crucial it would be for these toxicology reports, for example, to be done and for us to understand what the cause of death is.
Yeah, so the foodstuffs appear to be dry foods, which suggest that it isn't food poisoning, but it might be poisoning. So we need to know whether or not what toxins are involved here, whether or not it was something that was planted or whether it is something that was in the foods. We've got to eliminate the options. We need to know whether there is actually a specific threat to children, that these might have been targeted. On the other hand, if there is a general problem related to foodstuffs that are going or a danger to children, then we need to know that. So I think just the very unusual nature of the poisoning, which has been characterized as food poisoning. Well, there was poison in food. The question is if it was a bacteria that caused it. We don't know.
And
so we can't rush to judgment.
Yeah.
And particularly given the foods that were used.
And Prof, one would think that it would be standard procedure to try to get these reports done as soon as possible, particularly when you're seeing such a number of cases?
Yes, and it's absolutely. And I find it unusual that it's the Minister of Home Affairs that comes out and says that to regulate spaza shops out of this. I don't know where we get from one to the other, and foreign-owned spaza shops. So this is where there is a concern, because at a very senior level there is an attempt to indicate what the problem is without any evidence whatsoever. But we need evidence, not just to avoid the spurious claims, but also to know exactly what the dangers are, because this was something that affected children. They were harmed. We need to know exactly what harmed them. And we need to put a rush on it because of the numbers of children that were involved. And for us not to know in a period of time is very unusual.
And I wonder then, because, in light of that, the fact that there's now the move to apportion the blame, the fact that we are now seeing in some of the areas a confiscation, for example, of what they call expired goods in some of these shops. And I wonder how much does this go then in helping in the problem, because it's one thing to remove the expired goods, but when you do this without even knowing the source and understanding exactly the complexity of the problem, it may just be treating a symptom in some of these cases.
Well, there's a question as to whether or not any expired goods causes a risk. I eat expired goods all the time. Many of them do not create harm. And some expiry dates purely indicate that this isn't ideal to now retail it anymore because it doesn't taste as good. So these were dry goods, which means that even if they're on some sell-by date, they aren't necessarily dangerous. So if it's biscuits, it's not going to be dangerous. But if it is another kind of good like meat or some other kind of good that carries bacteria and carries a risk, then you'd want to know. But it doesn't appear that that is what was being sold to these children, and that's what they were consuming. So it does raise a question: what was causing this problem? What in a dry good, what in a biscuit is going to the kind of thing that results in child being poisoned, and we do need to know. And so the silence on that is worrying. And again, as I said right at the beginning, the fact that this happened in localized settings in quite different parts of the country suggests a connection, but the connection isn't the normal ones. We actually do need to know what happened here. And if somebody was deliberately poisoning these children, we need to know, because that is one option, one interpretation of these events.
And Prof, what then becomes the immediate thing to do now to make sure that, one, there's a coordinated approach in order to understand from these various areas what are we seeing here? Two, to be able to get these reports done and be able to understand exactly what is going on, as you say, some of the things that are now being fueled, particularly in the realm of speculation.
Yeah, so what tests were done on the children? It should have been possible to reveal what was the cause of the illness that the children felt, and you would want to. And in some cases, people would have probably still had some of the foodstuffs, which could have been sent for testing. So it's pretty straightforward, it appears, given the sheer numbers of people involved, to have got reasonable samples of what caused this. So yeah, the test should have been done immediately because it was children who faced harm, and there is no reason why we still wouldn't know today. It doesn't take 2-3 weeks for this kind of test to be done. It should be done immediately. But the question is, has it been done? And has an actual scientific report been prepared that has indicated what was the cause here? The silence is deafening.